Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today, I'm going to teach this 3-hour course of Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha. This is where you're going to be able to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are and what they are not. And then I'm going to teach you his very first teaching so that you guys can understand what he actually taught as his very first teaching, because this is where you can have a real breakthrough to finally understanding what is causing your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You're going to be able to learn what's causing all of these feelings, and then the Buddha gives you the solution of how to fix this too. You won't be able to completely understand the entire solution in just one class, and you won't be able to implement it after just one class. It's going to take time to gradually train the mind to get to enlightenment, but once you do, your mind will be completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You won't experience any of those discontent feelings because you will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing them. So I'd like to welcome you guys here. Welcome to everyone online as well. We're going to start with meditation to be able to start our class, give you guys a chance to experience some of the teachings of the Buddha. So if you'd like to join in for the meditation, the way I do this is I start with some chanting to ease into the meditation. Then I'm going to provide you some guidance once we're in the meditation. Then there'll be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class. The chants, if you would like to chant along, they're on the laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to chant along if you like, because there's benefit in chanting. That as you chant, you'll notice that the mind eases into the meditation and gets more benefit out of the meditation itself. It's important not to see these chants as a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or anything like that, because the Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. During his lifetime, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that every 2 weeks they would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they remembered them, because the ability to write things down didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. It wasn't until shortly after he died that they were able to start writing things down. So they needed some way to remember his teachings, and he did chanting with them, that every 2 weeks they would just recite the teachings in order to commit them to their memory. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or prayer or anything like that. Sometimes people associate those kinds of things with the teachings of the Buddha, but those aren't actually the teachings of the Buddha. So these are just to help ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you see the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and tell people, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, because this would be ego and arrogance to do that. And a Buddha doesn't have that. An individual who's gotten to enlightenment, they don't have that arrogance. They just see themselves as equal to everybody else. So if you like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. It'll help you to ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation. Then, as I mentioned, there'll be some guidance. There'll be a period of time where it'll be quiet and we'll just be meditating, everyone here and everyone online. And then we'll come out of that with some more chanting as well. In terms of your body position, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. The seated position is very common for people to sit on the floor, in a chair, on a bench, a sofa, a wheelchair. Any of these are options for you. You can sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one fixed way to sit. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you like to do that just lightly. So that way it helps to keep the circulation flowing in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, because there isn't just one way to sit. You can sit however you're comfortable. There's not just one way to do it. And the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together. If that's helpful for you, you could do it that way, but there's other options here as well. Some people put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up or rest their hands comfortably in their laps. So you can put them wherever you like. And it's helpful if the upper body is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind could be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle, where you can not only have the mind that's attentive and alert, but it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to do this chanting on the way in. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back with some guidance after that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Wat Tung Mahakewanang Aphivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to you guys. Welcome to everyone online as well. So I'm going to help you guys to learn about the teachings of the Buddha just as an introduction. This meditation is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of meditation that the Buddha taught, but we talk about this in other programs and help you to understand the ins and outs of it and why it's important and what you're actually accomplishing. This class just kind of looks at the teachings of the Buddha from afar, but then we penetrate deeply into his very first teaching, and you'll understand more when we get to that point. But I'm just going to slowly help you to start to understand a bit of the teachings of the Buddha just as an introduction. First, just starting with what is a Buddha, helping you to understand what that is. And as we go, you guys are welcome to ask questions. If you guys wouldn't mind using the microphones here in the white bowl, this way the people online will be able to hear you. All you need to do is get a microphone, press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on, and you can just hold that up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So first, let's just talk about what a Buddha is. That's a great place to start in terms of introducing you to the teachings of the Buddha. Let's understand what a Buddha is. A Buddha is a human being. It's an individual who's gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a permanent mental state that you experience in this life where you no longer experience any discontent feelings. All those feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, that's all been eliminated because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing it. You're going to understand what those causes and conditions are today, at least some of them, when we talk about the Four Noble Truths. So an individual who's a Buddha has gotten to this enlightened mental state without the help of any teachers or any guides. And then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime because they have deep wisdom of how to actually get to enlightenment because they figured it out by themselves. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three primary criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. So you can see that you can get to enlightenment, but you wouldn't be a Buddha at that point. So some people in the world, they say everybody is a Buddha. But the Buddha never said this. The Buddha said that it's very rare for a Buddha to exist in the world. And this is the reason why, because of these three criteria. But there's also other criteria too of what makes a Buddha, like this one here. A Buddha is going to have a very profound memory. They're going to have a deep memory. They have essentially unlimited capacity in their mind to remember countless details about their current life and their past lives as well. This is how they actually get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes and they put it all together in their last life to be able to then get to enlightenment on their own. So for you, you have kind of like a limited capacity, right? Like an average human being, it might think of it like a 500 gigabyte hard drive or a 1 terabyte hard drive. And when you experience things in your day-to-day life, like in the last 5 years or so, you probably remember most things that you were involved in. But if you think back to your childhood, you just kind of have spotty memories, right? This is because you've had to delete old files in order to store new files because you have a limited capacity in your mind. An individual who's going to be a Buddha, even in the unenlightened state, they don't have that. They have an unlimited capacity and they accumulate all this wisdom over multiple lifetimes. And now that wisdom is used to be able to get to enlightenment in their last life. They can also quickly determine the condition of someone else's mind by spending time with that person. They can see the pollutions in the mind, and then they're able to offer teachings to be able to help that person to be able to get to enlightenment. This is not something that they go around and they just do to any random person. They would only do that with individuals who are learning with them. This is one of the reasons why a Buddha is so effective at sharing the teachings, is they can observe the quality of their student's mind and then help them with teachings that are going to guide them on the path to enlightenment. And then lastly, a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever they're teaching, they're also practicing that too, because they're wise enough to understand that their students are going to learn from their spoken words, but they also learn from their actions too. So it's not like a Buddha is going to teach to be loving and kind and warm and gentle, and then they're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile when they're not teaching, right? They're going to be living, breathing, walking example of their teachings because their students are learning through their interactions with that teacher, with that Buddha, right? That individual who's sharing the teachings. So these are the criteria of what make a Buddha, and we refer to this person as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. The reason why is because anybody who gets to enlightenment, they're experiencing enlightenment. Their mind is completely peaceful and joyful. You're going to hear other qualities that you experience as a result of getting to enlightenment. Everybody will be experiencing those qualities. But let's just say somebody learned from a teacher who's not a Buddha, and that teacher is sharing things with them about how to get to enlightenment. And maybe that person has gotten to enlightenment, but maybe only about 80 or 90% of what they actually learned is what led to their enlightenment. Maybe there's still like another 5, 10, 20% of things that they're doing that didn't lead to their enlightenment. But they're still doing it, right? Because they just don't know that it doesn't lead to enlightenment, but they still got to enlightenment. So a fully, perfectly enlightened Buddha, they don't have teachers and guides. So this individual who's gotten to enlightenment but still has some extra baggage around, the reason why is because their teacher taught it to them and they just kind of do what their teacher is teaching them. So they have a tendency to be able to still do things that actually didn't lead to their enlightenment. But a Buddha doesn't have that. A Buddha doesn't have teachers and guides. So whatever they know by the time they get to enlightenment, it's the path to enlightenment. Because if a Buddha tries a meditation and it doesn't work to improve the condition of their mind, they'll discard it and throw it away. Whereas if they do a certain meditation and it works to improve the condition of their mind, they know this is the path to enlightenment. So an individual who's gotten to enlightenment through the help of a teacher that isn't a Buddha, they don't have that same aspect of their mind. So that's why we refer to a Buddha as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because they don't have this extra baggage that what they know of what leads to enlightenment, it's the pure path to enlightenment. And then they spend the rest of their life illuminating that path for other people to be able to see and be able to understand how to get to enlightenment. Okay. And then in terms of what the teachings of the Buddha are, is it's a path to attaining enlightenment through purification of the mind. The Buddha discovered certain pollutions that are in the mind, and then he figured out the tools and the techniques of how to uproot those and get to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And he did that for himself, so that's how he knew what it would take for other people to get to that same mental state. Because if it worked for him, it would work for other people too. By the time you get to enlightenment, the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a permanent mental state. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience any of these feelings. You're going to understand why by the time we get to the Four Noble Truths, the very first teaching of the Buddha, because oftentimes people think that it's other people who are causing these feelings. You might think it's something external, but you're going to learn about how it's something internal within your own mind that's causing these feelings. By the time you uproot these pollutions, not only will you eliminate these feelings, but your mind will be focused, concentrated, you'll have memory, and you'll have clarity of mind. That's because your mind's performing optimally. When you have these pollutions in the mind, it can't perform optimally. So by the time you uproot these pollutions and purify the mind, you'll be experiencing these improved qualities as well. You'll notice that you have deep wisdom about the world and about things around you that other people don't understand. That's how you actually get to enlightenment, is by cultivating wisdom about the natural world around you and the natural laws about how the world truly functions. Because in the unenlightened state, we don't understand how the world is actually truly functioning. But when you understand these natural laws that the Buddha taught, you'll have this deep wisdom about the things in the world that other people don't have wisdom about. So you'll have this deep wisdom in the mind. You'll notice that by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody around you. Right now, you might find that hard, right? Especially with people like your parents, your siblings, maybe your life partner, maybe people that are, particularly close to you. If you have children or something like this, you might find it very challenging to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful. Maybe if you go to the airport and your flight is canceled or delayed, maybe you find it very challenging to be polite and respectful in that situation. That's because of what's going on in your own mind. It's not the outside world. And I'm going to explain this to you as you learn. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is going to be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful with everybody. You'll notice that you're not causing any harm to other beings. And because of this, you're going to notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming, right? They're going to be at ease. Because when you're bitter and harsh and hostile and you put that out, that just comes back to you in your relationships. So by the time you train your mind and you're no longer doing that, you'll see that that's not occurring in your life, that your relationships are very harmonious, both personally and professionally. And the way that this is occurring is it's occurring through eliminating what's called craving, anger, and ignorance. These are called the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. This is what you're actually eliminating out of the mind. The deepest level of detail that the Buddha talks about is called the 10 fetters. These are 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. What a fetter is during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a criminal and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. This was like a shackle and a chain and a ball. And now they would just have you in a field with other prisoners. Where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they attached a fetter around your ankle. And this is what will keep you confined to a certain area. So when he discovers these pollutions in the mind, he calls them fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, continuing to experience anger and frustration over and over and over again. And by the time you uproot them out of the mind, your mind's not experiencing that anymore. You're not even in a bad mood. It's physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood when you uproot these pollutions. So the 10 fetters is the deepest way of talking about them, the deepest level of detail. But when we talk about them from a high level, we refer to them as the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. I'm going to introduce you to these so you just understand a little bit about them. What craving is where the mind is longing, yearning, and it's chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way, expecting things to be a certain way. The mind, when it gets what it wants, what it's craving, what it's expecting, it'll get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, things like this, right? And when the mind is experiencing that anger arising, it'll attribute it to something external. So when the anger is arising, it's very painful for the mind. So it becomes unskillful. And because the mind thinks that the problem is external, it will tend to push people away, or it'll push a situation away. This is called aversion. You might have done this where you pushed friends or family out of your life, right? And people might have done this to you, right? But that doesn't solve the problem, because you can see you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated, you still get agitated. If that was the real cause of the problem, when you push them out of your life, you would be peaceful from that point forward, because they're not the true cause of the problem. When you push them out of your life, you still have the problem of being angry and frustrated and agitated or annoyed. Or when the mind doesn't understand this anger is coming from your own craving, your own longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection, not only will it push people away, but it'll be bitter and harsh and hostile through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, almost feeling justified in the way that you talk to this person. And now this damages your relationships, and people choose to leave out of your life. Or the third thing you might do is you might try to put your expectations on people and try to control people and force them to do things your way. And like I mentioned, people might be doing this to you too. But as long as you're doing this, you never actually solve the true problem, because pushing people away doesn't work. Being bitter, harsh, and hostile isn't going to work. That's just like trying to fear somebody to do things your way, or putting your expectations on people is trying to control them to do things your way. The mind is craving permanence. It's wanting everybody to do things a certain way, your way, right? That your way is the right way, everyone else is the wrong way, right? So it's this craving, desire, attachments, this longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way, that's arising the anger. And now when the anger is coming in, it becomes unskillful, pushing away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting expectations on people. And where that's coming from is the third one. It's referred to as ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. The Buddha didn't use the word ignorance, although people today use that word. I use the phrase unknowing of true reality, or confusion or misunderstanding, because a Buddha wouldn't talk to people in a derogatory and degrading way. And the word ignorance is a derogatory word. Like I would never refer to someone as ignorant, right? That's kind of like a way to talk down to someone, diminishing and degrading them. So what the Buddha is really talking about is this lack of wisdom, this confusion, this misunderstanding that the mind has, the misperception, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. That because it doesn't understand what craving is and what longing, yearning, what the mind's doing, it continues to experience anger. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues. The mind just lacks wisdom. The mind will firmly believe that it's the outside world that's causing you to be angry, but that's part of its ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality that the mind has. So when you purify the mind of these, which you learn as part of this path, how to do that, that's where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful, because now it truly understands and it's been truly transformed, and it doesn't get angry or frustrated anymore because these causes and conditions have been uprooted out of the mind. And that's why on the path to enlightenment, it's always important that you're cultivating wisdom. That's what you're doing here, is to antidote this ignorance, because it's a cascading effect, right? Because of the ignorance, there's craving and anger in the mind. So if you arise wisdom, you can eliminate your craving and anger, and you will no longer experience that cascading effect or that domino effect. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to arise wisdom of what's called the natural laws of existence. The natural laws are things that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. Just like when we grew up, the natural law of gravity affected all of us, and we struggled and we had difficulties because we didn't understand. We lived in a world that we didn't understand. So we fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys. We had all kinds of problems with this natural law of gravity. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. And when we got older, like 10, 12, 14 years old, we realized that we needed to tie our shoes a bit tighter. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like little kids, right? We looked at the surface of the sidewalk as we were walking to make sure we weren't stumbling over our feet. And now we don't struggle with the natural law of gravity anymore. In fact, if you fell down, you might even start laughing, right? Because you don't struggle with it. But when you were a little kid, if you fell down, we were really upset because we didn't understand. We had that lack of wisdom. But now we can ride bicycles, we can get on ladders, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world, because we might say we've fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. We've cultivated wisdom about it. Well, there's other natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And if you don't understand these natural laws, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. That's what the stress is. That's the anxiety. That's the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings. The mind is struggling because it's living in a world that it doesn't understand. So what the Buddha is teaching you is to cultivate wisdom about the natural laws so that you can now make wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. One of the main natural laws that you're cultivating wisdom about is the natural law of Gotama. Now, some people refer to this as karma. You might have heard that. That's the Sanskrit version of the word, just a different language. The original words of the Buddha are in Pali language. And this Pali language uses the word Gama. If this translated to just one English word, I would use it because it'd be easier for everyone, but it doesn't. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's whenever you make a decision, you're going to experience a result. And when you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. And when you lack wisdom of a natural law, just like the natural law of gravity, you will tend to make unwise decisions. You will go out in the world making decisions that you think are the best, but because of that unknowing of true reality and the lack of wisdom, not being fully awake to this natural law, you'll make decisions that are unwise. And now it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So the Buddha is teaching you how to learn, how to examine, how to investigate his teachings, how to reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. And that's where the real transformation is occurring within your own mind, because you're now practicing the teachings. So you're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning, reflecting to independently verify and practice now in this life. You need to independently verify the truth. That's how you get to wisdom. That's what's going to antidote that ignorance or unknowing of true reality. So the Buddha's teachings, he's not explaining how the world should be. And if you follow a bunch of rules and commandments, the world's going to become a better place. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, now by being awake to those natural laws, now you can navigate the world peacefully because you understand how the world is. So the Buddha is helping you to gradually cultivate this wisdom, but it's you that needs to do the work, of course. That's why you shouldn't believe anything. Don't believe the things that I write in books. Don't believe me. Don't believe the things that I say. You need to be able to learn, reflect, and practice to independently verify the truth for yourself. So training the mind through cultivating wisdom of this natural law, that's what's going to help you eliminate the pollutions of the mind. And that's what's going to help you to get to the peace and the joy. And you'll be able to see this happening for yourself, which is very rare. Because normally what you see is believe, and hope something good happens when you die. But at that point, it's too late, right? But what the teachings of the Buddha are doing for you is you can see right now in this life that things are improving. The condition of your mind's improving. You're becoming more and more peaceful. Your relationships are improving. Your profession, your career, you're advancing in your career. You can see this all occurring for you because you're training your mind and you're making wiser and wiser decisions in your day-to-day life. So you're cultivating wisdom and awakening to this natural law of cause and effect. The teachings of the Buddha are timeless. He spoke very clear, concise, and precise. These natural laws that he taught about 2,500 years ago, they haven't changed. They'll never will change. It's the same natural laws. So his teachings, he taught very clear, very concise, and very precise. It's the same teachings from 2,500 years ago. Now what's changed is people's memory of them. Since 2,500 years ago, people have changed his teachings, but that's not his teachings, right? But if you get back to what he originally taught, you can see the truth for yourself. So if you're seeing things like rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, things like this as part of the teachings of the Buddha, that's not his teachings. So he actually taught you to cultivate wisdom, and there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship that's going to help you to cultivate wisdom. So he spoke very clear and concise, very precise. His teachings are timeless when you start reading them and you start seeing what he spoke about. He did teach about the cycle of rebirth in 5 realms of existence, of hell, animal, afflicted spirit, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. And he taught these for a reason. He taught it because it's the truth. And you can actually independently verify it. Like I mentioned, nothing in his teachings is based in belief. You can actually independently verify the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence too. You might not have that wisdom of how to do that right now, but it's possible for you to gain that wisdom. But he taught this for a reason, because as you're training your mind and you're getting the pollutions out of your mind, you might experience where you can actually have vivid memories of your past lives. Because as the pollution is coming out of the mind, you can oftentimes start having memories of your previous lives. And if in this life, if you're having vivid memories of something that happened in a previous life, and they just keep reoccurring over and over and over again, like maybe you got murdered in a previous life, and you know that wasn't in this life because you're still alive, and you keep having these vivid memories over and over, this could really shake you up. If you didn't understand that, oh, this is from a past life, I can just let it go. I don't need to keep thinking about it. I can just let it go. Also, sometimes when people are awakening their mind, even before they're on the path to enlightenment, they can sometimes hear communication from these beings, from the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm. These are like ghosts, and even the heavenly realm. Some people can hear communication from them. Again, if you didn't understand that that's true reality, that's how the world works, you could really be shaken up by that. And some people can see these beings too, the hell beings, the afflicted spirits, and the heavenly beings. Even though they're formless beings, some people can actually physically see them. Even though they're not physical, you can see them. And again, you could be really shaken up if you didn't understand that this was true. So the Buddha taught this for a reason, because you might have these experiences, and he's explaining to you the way the world is, so that then you understand that, oh, this is very normal to be able to have these kinds of things occurring, and now you can just set it aside. Like if you were having constant voices of hearing beings from other realms, just like you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, you can ignore those people that are talking kind of loud. You can do the same thing with these beings. You can learn how to ignore it, right? But if people don't understand that, then they don't understand how to do that. So what I suggest people to do is to really just set this aside at the beginning of the path to enlightenment, because that's not something you need to run out and independently verify right now. Instead, it's important to focus on the core central teachings that actually train your mind and will help you to get to more peace and more joy. This is something that you usually approach like 1.5 years, 2 years from now. Because what's happened in the past is in the past, doesn't matter right now. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future, doesn't matter. So right now, if you're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings, you'd like to solve that. So if you focus on the core central teachings at the beginning, then in the future, you can get to that when it's time for you to be able to approach that. The Buddha did teach about God. Sometimes people think that the Buddha didn't teach about God. You might have people that go as far as saying the Buddha denied the existence of God, or the Buddha rejected God. This isn't actually true. If you read his original teachings, he actually teaches about God. He just doesn't make God the center of his teachings. If somebody says that the Buddha didn't teach about God, they haven't actually penetrated into his teachings far enough to be able to see that he actually did teach about this being. But he doesn't put God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you that determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. So he put you at the center of his teachings. So the Buddha did teach about this being, and you can get to enlightenment with a relationship with this being or without a relationship with this being. Some people have no interest to have a relationship with this being whatsoever. Hey, you can still get to enlightenment. It's just like if you had a neighbor. You could choose to have a relationship with your neighbor, and that would be wonderful for you, because then when you need someone to watch over your house, or maybe you need something, you can go to your neighbor and be like, hey, by the way, can I borrow some salt? Right? It's kind of nice to have that relationship with the neighbor. But you can get along just fine without a relationship with your neighbor, right? You don't have to even ever talk to them if you weren't interested in that, and you would just get along fine in your life, right? So it's the same kind of thing with God. Like, you could have a relationship with this being or not, and it's up to you whether you choose to do that. But if you were going to have a relationship with this being, there's oftentimes certain things that people need to understand in order to do that. Because sometimes people have been taught to fear this being, or that this being is going to punish you or reward you, Some people have been taught to pray to this being in order to ask for things to magically show up in front of them and things like this. All of this kind of stuff is going to lead you astray. But nonetheless, in this particular class, I'm just teaching that the Buddha did teach about this being God. But there's details in other programs that we teach to be able to help you understand this being in more detail. And whether you choose to have a relationship with this being or not, it's up to you. Okay? In terms of what the teachings of the Buddha are, is the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha is in what's called the Pali Canon. This is 45 large volumes of books that are about this thick, right? This is the largest, most complete collection we have of his teachings. And that's what you would ultimately study as part of your journey to enlightenment. But oftentimes, studying those 45 volumes of book, it's pretty comprehensive and sometimes challenging for people to wrap their arms around it. So what we've done is we've consolidated that into this book series that I share. It's titled The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden. The reason why it's called Revealing the Hidden is because most people don't actually study with the original words of the Buddha. Because up until recently, these teachings have been hidden. Not overtly, not intentionally, but just because it's so expensive to print out 45 volumes of books that are this thick. Here in Thailand, it would cost you about 3 months of your salary to be able to have a version of this, right? And you probably don't own any book collections worth 3 months of your salary, right? So even the average temple oftentimes doesn't even have access to the original words of the Buddha. So what we've done is we've consolidated it into 13 books and give it away for free. That you can actually download it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. And then that way you can get access to these teachings that are going to help you to progress forward in your journey. And then you can take classes, courses, and retreats to be able to help you, whether you're here in Chiang Mai or you're traveling, because I live stream all the classes that I teach. So you can either watch them live or you can watch the recordings if you like. And then really what I think of when I think about what the teachings of the Buddha are, is it's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. Right? Because it's no fun walking around with guilt and shame and fear and stress and anxiety, all these other feelings, loneliness, boredom, and all these kinds of things, resentment, animosity, and bitterness. It's no fun walking around with that kind of stuff. But what people don't understand because of the lack of wisdom is they think that it's the outside world that's causing all of this. So they're trying to fix the outside world rather than focus on the real problem, which is internally. So that's what the Buddha is doing for you, is help you to see what the real problem is and then give you the actual solutions to fix it. So his teachings are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's what his teachings are. So do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are? For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm just going to check online here. Okay, I don't see any questions. All right, so now that we've talked a bit about what the teachings of the Buddha are, let's talk about what the teachings of the Buddha are not. Because this is a way to help you understand what the teachings of the Buddha are, right? Is by understanding what they are not. The teachings of the Buddha are not a collection of beliefs, doctrines, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you don't believe in them. Remember, I shared there's nothing in the teachings of the Buddha that are based in belief. You can independently verify what he taught. So he's not giving you opinions or views that you need to either agree with or disagree with. It's about helping you to be able to see these natural laws and to see the pollutions in your mind and the techniques about how to eliminate them. So it's not about a doctrine or views or rules or commandments or any of these other kinds of things. It's about helping you to understand these natural laws, and then when you see the truth through learning and investigating the teachings, you can now practice those teachings and then experience the transformation within your own mind. So it's not even about an afterlife. The Buddha is helping you to get to a wonderful life now in this life. Who would like to wait until you die in order to have a great life? Get to a great life now. That's what he's teaching you, right? And you can see that you're gradually doing that. So that's what his teachings are more about. Sometimes people think of the teachings of the Buddha as a religion. I don't think of them this way, and how other people choose to think of it is up to them. But if you think about religion as like an organization where there's one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, or if you think about religion as rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, or if you think about religion as rules and commandments that everybody must follow in order to create a peaceful world, well, the Buddha's teachings aren't a religion, if that's the way you think about religion, because there's not one person at the top of Buddhism telling everybody else what to do. There's also aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. If you've seen those things attributed to the teachings of the Buddha, even if they're doing it at a temple, even if it's an ordained practitioner, that's actually not his teachings. You can see very clearly in his original teachings that he didn't teach those kinds of things, because he's teaching you to cultivate wisdom. And there's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to cultivate wisdom. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that's going to help you to cultivate wisdom, right? So rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and even prayer, it doesn't lead to wisdom. So he never taught any of those kinds of things. And he's not teaching you rules and commandments, because this is like the world is black and white, and you got to follow these rules. And if you don't follow these rules, someone's going to come enforce those rules. That's not what he's teaching you. He's explaining to you your mind and how it works. It's almost the way you might think about the Buddha is he's like the world's foremost expert in the human mind. And he took human psychology and he boiled it down to a common language that everybody could understand. And now through understanding that, you can actually train your own mind and get to a point where your mind is completely peaceful and joyful. So there aren't these rules and commandments. In fact, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment if you were following a bunch of rules or commandments, because you wouldn't understand the why behind it. You would understand these pollutions and the techniques of how to uproot them out of the mind. The Buddha's teachings aren't punishments and rewards. It's also not mystical or magical things or superstitious or auspicious things. The Buddha says very clearly in his teachings that he didn't teach anything superstitious or auspicious. It's not part of his teachings. Also, the teachings of the Buddha, they're not something to attempt to force others or convince other people to do. Sometimes what people do when they learn things like this is they want to run out in the world and convince other people to do these same things. And it makes them feel better about what it is that they're doing, where this isn't what the teachings of the Buddha are. The teachings of the Buddha are for you, to help you look inward and train your mind. It's essentially the best, most well-vetted self-help program you could ever imagine, right? Because it's been around for 2,500 years for a reason, because it works. He's teaching you to train your own mind, to look inward, to be introspective and reflective, and uproot the unwholesomeness that's in the mind and produce wholesome qualities in your own mind. So it's not about going out and convincing other people to do something. It's about you training your own mind. And it's a path to personal growth and development. Today, if the Buddha was alive, they'd probably call him a life coach, right? Because that's essentially what he's doing, is he's helping to guide you in the world and becoming and having a better and better life. That's what he was doing. The teachings of the Buddha aren't short, catchy phrases that will produce some type of benefit in your life. If you've ever been on social media and you see these little short, catchy phrases, and then somebody will say, the Buddha, like the Buddha said that, right? If you research these, about 99.9% of them were never said by the Buddha. They were actually said in the last 100 or 200 years. There's a website that actually tracks all of this stuff, and they go out and research it. And you can see that the Buddha never said these things. So if you see these little memes circulating around with different phrases, and it has the Buddha, you can pretty much guarantee that it's not from the Buddha, because the Buddha's teachings are very deep, very detailed. They're discourses where he would sit for half an hour, and he would just talk and explain the teachings. So his teachings aren't these little short, catchy phrases. Also, his teachings aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades or judges other people. Sometimes people think teachings from 2,500 years ago, gosh, the Buddha must have degraded women, right? Or the Buddha must have degraded minorities, right? No, he never did, right? Because the teachings of the Buddha are about respecting and loving everybody. He never degraded or diminished anyone. He taught men how to respect their wives, and he taught wives how to respect their husbands, right? So the Buddha is not degrading or diminishing anyone. So if there's people today that are degrading or diminishing a certain gender or sexual orientation or something, or certain race or ethnicity, that's those people that are doing that. That's not the Buddha that did that. You will never find anywhere in his teachings where he was degrading or diminishing to anybody whatsoever, including women or minorities or anything like this. He was teaching everybody how to have love and kindness for each other and how to live in harmony with each other. He wasn't teaching to degrade or judge people or anything like this. So this is what the teachings of the Buddha are not. They are not these things. Okay? Any questions on this? No? Let me see if we have any online. Okay, I don't see any online either. So normally what I do is I take a break here, but we're usually a little bit further along in our talk at this point. If people kind of need a break, I don't know. If you guys don't need a break, I can keep teaching because I have about 45 minutes more and we could be finished. Or if you guys would like a break to stretch your legs, use the bathroom, talk with each other, we can take a break. Use the bathroom? Okay, so why don't we take a little break then? Usually I take a nice long break so you guys get a chance to spend time with each other, but since it's just a small class, whenever you guys are ready to start learning again, just let me know and I'll help you. Okay? All right. So we're going to take a break for those of you guys online, and when we come back to break, I'll come back online. Okay, so welcome back to all of you guys online. We just needed a short little break here for bathroom and all that good stuff. So we're going to keep on going. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into the very first teaching of the Buddha. This is where you can have a real breakthrough. This is where the Buddha would start every brand new student, is in the same place, is understanding the Four Noble Truths. In 4 simple statements, you're going to be able to understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And this is something that you, again, need to independently verify. Don't believe what I share with you in terms of these teachings, because belief isn't going to lead to wisdom. You need to be able to learn, examine, investigate. You need to be able to reflect, to independently verify the teachings, and then practice them. So I'm going to walk you through this in a way that you can understand and you can gradually cultivate wisdom. In order to explain to you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first explain to you the three universal truths. These are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is the very first step of the Eightfold Path. This Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha that's going to guide you to enlightenment. And you would learn each one of these factors in your journey to enlightenment, and you would apply it more and more in your life. One of the ways you might think about it is if you had a sound system and you had like 8 individual dials to tweak in order to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. It's the same thing. Like your mind has these 8 dials, and if you tweak these, you'll get a better performing mind. So as you learn these and you tweak these in your life, you're going to get a better performing mind. And it starts with right view, having the right view of what is really truly causing the problems in your own mind. So that's where the Buddha starts you out, as a foundation, using right view. So like I mentioned, the 3 universal truths are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true, but you need to know that they're true. And that's why you don't believe what it is that I share. So I'm going to walk you through this and show you how to do this independent verification. And remember, the Buddha is teaching you the way the world is, not the way the world should be. Okay, so the first universal truth is called the universal truth of impermanence. This is where the Buddha is helping you to understand the way the world is it's constantly changing, that everything around you is constantly changing, right? It's going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away. This is a building block that you're going to understand why you need this when we get to the Four Noble Truths. There's something called conditioned objects, that anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through your mind, they are called a conditioned object. They will arise, they will change, and then they will fade away based on some condition. So the sun is impermanent, right? And other things around you are impermanent, right? Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. The natural laws of existence are that way. That's why the Buddhist teachings are timeless, because what he taught 2,500 years ago, it's the same natural laws. They haven't changed. Enlightenment, by the time you get to enlightenment, the mind is now unconditioned. It's been purified. It's a permanent mental state. In the unenlightened state, you have causes and conditions that are producing certain feelings. But by the time you get to enlightenment, those causes and conditions are eliminated. Your mind's no longer conditioned. It is now unconditioned, that you don't have the arising, changing, and fading away of things like happiness, sadness, and so forth. Your mind is permanently happy by the time you get to enlightenment. Okay, so this is the universal truth of impermanence, that things are constantly changing in the world around you. But you're not interested in believing that, because that's just the learning part. That's just the intellectual understanding that what I'm teaching you is anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body or any thoughts or ideas, they are impermanent. So now you move into the reflection to independently verify, is this true or false? So what you would like to do is you would like to look around the world around you to be able to independently verify this. Because if this is a universal truth, you should be able to independently verify it without me, right? So what you do is you start looking at things you're familiar with and ask yourself, is it permanent or is it impermanent? So for example, like this body, you're very familiar with this body. You can ask yourself, is it permanent, meaning it's exactly the same and will always be exactly the same, or is it constantly changing, meaning it's impermanent? What would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get wrinkles, moles, pimples, freckles, we get gray hair, we start losing our hair, our skin color changes, we get fatter, we get smaller, right? We have all these different things that are happening. This is the constant change that we experience. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, people are coming and going in and out of your life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down, up and down. What about the weather? Is it permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? We could go on and on and on. If that's what you need to do, do it. You need to go out in the world and see the impermanence, right? When you look at the trees and there's green leaves in the trees and there's brown ones on the ground, that is impermanence. When you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanence. Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't. That's impermanence. You see a fence that's painted and the paint is fading. That's impermanence. Here, we started out with a certain number of students in the class, and now it's changed. We have other people that have come to join us, right? That's change, right? You can see the planks on the wood floor of the temple. Some are longer, shorter, different colors, different textures. This is all impermanence, right? So everything around you is constantly changing. This is a building block that you're going to need when we get to the Four Noble Truths. Then the second universal truth is called discontentedness. I'll explain to you guys what this is and help you to understand it. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard the word suffering being used, right? This isn't the proper word to use, and I'll explain to you why. But first, let me explain to you what the Buddha taught here. He taught something about the unenlightened mind. He's explaining what the unenlightened mind experiences. He referred to it in the Pali language as dukkha. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because what he's explaining is how the unenlightened mind experiences three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. This is a conditioned feeling that based on some condition, you're going to experience this feeling. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful to experience. And once again, they're conditioned. Based on some condition, the mind's going to experience this feeling. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say it's quite painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you'd like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you were on public transportation and someone you didn't know came and sat close to you and your body was touching their body. You might say, it's not painful. It's not pleasant. The mind's kind of uncomfortable. It's kind of dissatisfied in that situation, right? So these are the three feelings that the Buddha is explaining the unenlightened mind experiences, where the mind is discontent or discontented or experiencing discontentedness. The mind is shaken up. It's unsteady. It's unstable. Have you ever been so happy you like tripped and fell? Or you've been so excited you like tripped and fell, right? This is the instability of the mind, that you're so excited or you dropped something and broke it or something like this, right? So as long as the mind is shaken up like this, it can't be steady and stable. It can't make wise decisions because the mind's all shaken up like this, right? So you can independently verify this universal truth because what the Buddha is describing is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, is these three feelings. And you know your mind is unenlightened now, so ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? Is there any feelings that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? And if so, when we get to questions, you can let me know and we can talk about it, right? Because he's helping you to be able to see what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. That based on some condition, you're going to experience a feeling. So you look outside and it's sunny. Oh, you're so happy. You're so excited. Wow, I can go outside. There's this hiking trail that I've been wanting to go on. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to go hiking. Oh, this is going to be so great, right? Now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. And now you're sad and you're frustrated. So if you allow the mind to experience the feeling of happiness and excitement when it's sunny outside, that's a conditioned feeling. Based on the condition that it's sunny, I'm going to be happy. But then when the sun's gone, your happiness is gone too, because you based your happiness on the sun. The sun is not permanent. That's the whole reason why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because your mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, and that condition is not permanent. An enlightened being, when they wake up, they're already happy before they ever woke up. They see that it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, we're going to go hiking today. I'm going to call my friends, been interested in going on this trail for a long time. Oh, this is going to be excellent. Now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. It's like, oh, it's raining. Okay, well, guess I'm not going hiking today. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Or maybe I'll go to the mall. Or maybe I'll invite my friends over and we can cook some food and have a good time at home, right? You can maintain your happiness. You can maintain your joy because it wasn't based on the sun, right? It's called unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy, where your mind is beyond this pleasure and pain. Where in the unenlightened state, you're going to experience this discontentedness where your mind's going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before you get annoyed about something, right? That's what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. So this is called discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Okay, this is explaining the unenlightened mind and how it's shaken up and it's unsteady and it's unstable. Some people refer to this as suffering. I don't use this word because the word suffering explains the painful feelings very well, right? When you're sad, when you're angry, when you're frustrated, you probably say you were suffering, right? But if your boss came into your office and said, hey, I'm going to give you a $20,000 a year raise, and you got really excited, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or if your mom called you up and said, hey, I heard you got a new house. I'm going to come visit you this weekend at your house. Can I come see you? And you got really excited because mom's coming. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. Or that person you don't know that comes and sits next to you on public transportation and your body's touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation, right? You're just uncomfortable. The mind is displeased in that situation. So if we use the word suffering, we're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha taught on this important topic. We're missing 66% of his teachings. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the final goal of enlightenment? Right? So you need to be able to get to the point where you see these pleasant feelings, remember the conditioned pleasant feelings, as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because with conditioned pleasant feelings, the mind can only be happy when certain conditions are met. If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, my life partner does this, my neighbors do this, then I'll be happy, right? Your happiness shrinks because it's conditional. And all those things being true is very rare and very unlikely. So what the Buddha is teaching you how to do is get beyond this, where your mind is no longer having conditional happiness, but instead you're having unconditional happiness, unconditioned joy, where your mind doesn't need any condition to be met. If it's sunny outside, you were already happy before you saw the sun. And now when it starts raining, it maintains my happiness, right? So you're beyond the conditionality of this up and down and up and down. The mind is just permanently happy and joyful. But it's not conditional. It's unconditioned. So you need to be able to see the conditional pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow your mind to get so happy and excited about something, as soon as that condition doesn't exist anymore, you'll be angry and sad and frustrated. So if you get so excited about that brand new job that you just got, well, when that company lays you off 3 years from now, or they go out of business and you can't work there anymore, you'll be frustrated. You'll be angry, right? So the Buddha is teaching you how to maintain your joy and your happiness permanently, getting to this unconditioned happiness. So that's why discontentedness is so important, because it helps you to be able to understand the full spectrum of emotions and feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. And now you can bring your mind fully to understanding how to get to the solution, which is what the Buddha is going to teach you how to do. Okay, so this is the discontentedness, and you can independently verify that. Now, the third universal truth is called the universal truth of non-self. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. Remember, there's those 10 fetters that we were talking about, the 10 pollutions in the mind. That's the deepest level of detail that the Buddha has of the pollutions in the mind. The very first pollution is called personal existence view. This is the solution to personal existence view. So let me explain to you the problem first, and then I'll explain to you the solution, because this is the solution. The problem with personal existence view, the pollution in the mind, is where the mind has confusion or misunderstanding, and it thinks that this body or this mind is you. So it clings and holds on to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you're being perceived that way, you'll be happy. But when you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, you'll be sad, angry, frustrated, embarrassed, or some other discontent feeling. So for example, if you've ever been in a public situation where you spilled something on your clothing and you were embarrassed, this is your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And the mind thinks that this body is you, and it wants to be perceived by others a certain way. When you have this spaghetti sauce all over your shirt, you feel embarrassed because you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived. Or if you've ever gone in front of a mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, and you were shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view. The mind thinks that this body is you, and it's clinging to this self-image, wanting it to look a certain way permanently, when in reality, this physical body is not permanent. So now when you go outside with that big pimple on your cheek or your nose, now you feel embarrassed or less of a person. Or if you've ever been in front of your closet and you thought, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And you put on some clothes and you look in the mirror, you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And you put on some other clothes and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And you put on a third set, you're like, all right, now I feel comfortable going outside. This is the mind clinging to the body, thinking that this is who you are, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Or maybe you were like me when I was a teenager. I used to get out the gel and the mousse, and I would rub it through my hair, trying to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I went to school. And I would sometimes do this for so long, I would miss the school bus on the way to the school, right? Because I was worried about every little hair, getting every little hair in exactly the right spot. Right? This is the personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting it to be perceived by others in a certain way. Then there's a part of it that's called self-identity. You might be clinging to a certain self-identity based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, and once again, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. So if you cling to, say, I am French, or I am Chinese, or I am Korean, or I am American, or I am Spanish, or I am Lithuanian, or I am Brazilian. This identity is the mind thinking that this is who you are. And now when you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying something wonderful about the nationality, the country that you come from, you'll be like, wow, they're talking about me. All Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. Wow, they're talking about me. But now 2 tables over, they're going to say something degrading and disparaging about where you come from. And now you're going to think they're talking about me. And now you're going to be frustrated and angry and irritated. Or perhaps you were working in some job or occupation, or maybe you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. And maybe you identified with, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when you guys were together, you felt great. Your identity was intact. But then when you guys broke up, you didn't feel comfortable with I am single, because the mind doesn't think that way. And it might have wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. When in reality, the problem is the personal existence view. Hurrying up and getting back into another relationship isn't going to solve that. Or if you had a job or occupation, say like I am a police officer, and the mind thinks that way. That's the self-identity that it's clinging to. Well, as long as you're doing that job, you feel great. But then maybe you get injured and you can't do that job anymore. Or maybe you retired. Or maybe you got fired and now you don't feel whole. You don't feel complete anymore. There's like a piece of you missing because you're not doing that job anymore. This is the mind clinging to an identity. This is the problem, right? This personal existence view, clinging to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And what the Buddha teaches you as a solution is he says that there is no self, right? There is no self. That this body is not you, this mind is not you. It's going to be constantly changing. And as soon as you cling to it and you think that this is who you are, when it changes, you'll feel like less of a person. You're going to feel, you're going to have discontentedness in your mind, right? So you need to get to the point where you do what's called realizing non-self, that you realize that this body is not you and this mind is not you. And you might start to understand it as I'm talking about it intellectually, but it's when you go out there that it's really challenging for you, right? Because in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something about this body, you might have a lot of difficulties with it. So I'll share with you how to independently verify this, because remember, everything's independently verifiable. Think about yourself when you were a child, a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. These 4 phases of your life. Have you thought about yourself in exactly the same way in terms of your character and your personality, or has it been constantly changing? What would you say? It's constantly changing, right? Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Shaking your head, no? 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 Okay. Right? So there you can see intellectually, you understand this body is not you. Because if this body is you, then when I asked you that question, you would have answered it completely different. You would have said, yes, I'm less of a person because there's less body, so therefore I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you understand this body is not you. But that's where the confusion and the misunderstanding comes in. In the heat of the moment with that personal existence view, when somebody says something about this body, if they say something agreeable to you, oh, you're talking about me. Wow, you look so beautiful in that shirt. That brings out the colors of your eyes. You're so handsome. You're so beautiful. Wow, they're talking about me because they're complimenting my shirt. But then it's only a matter of time before someone says something degrading or disparaging about this body and how it looks. And now you're angry or frustrated, right? So you can see the mind's confused in these situations. That's the personal existence view. That's the pollution. Here's a third way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Maybe you guys all realize non-self already. Where are you? Can you point? Sometimes people point here, or they'll point here, right? So if somebody points here and they say, I am here, you need to be able to see what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. So if you took off your shirt and you hung it up and pointed to it, if I took off my shirt and pointed to it, is that who I am, the shirt? Is that who you are, that shirt you're wearing? No, that's not you. Okay, throw it away. Where are you? And somebody might point again. Okay, now you're pointing to skin. If we ripped off our skin and held it up, is that who you are? That skin that you've got? Is that you? That skin? That's not you either, right? Okay, let's throw that away. Where are you? And someone might point again. You've got bones and muscle tissue and fluid and organs. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But with the mind's personal existence view, it's going to cling to it and it's going to think that this is you. So you need to get beyond this, where you're not seeing this body as who you are, because this body is going to be constantly changing. And if you cling to it and think this is who you are, when it starts changing, you'll be discontent. You'll be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed, right? Or the same thing with your self-identity. If you cling to this, now you'll have difficulties and struggles in certain relationships, in certain situations, when things are changing. Sometimes people have this so significantly that they'll come to a place like Thailand and they'll say to their friends and their family in their home country, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. And they'll come to a place like Thailand or other places to find themselves. Maybe you've done this. Maybe that's why you're in Thailand, because you're here to find yourself. What the Buddha is teaching you is you're not going to find yourself in Thailand because it doesn't exist. What you might find is new hobbies, new activities, new job, new occupation, but none of that stuff is you. As soon as you cling to it and you think this is who you are, and then it changes, you're going to be right back in the same problem again, right? Where you don't know who you are, right? So the Buddha helps you to get to the point where you understand there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, and we call that a person or a human being. But that's not you. If you cling to it as your identity or as your image, Now, when it all starts changing, you'll be lost and confused. Okay, so some people understand this one when I first start talking about it. Sometimes they don't. If you don't understand personal existence view and the universal truth of non-self, it's okay, because you've spent an enormous amount of time accumulating this, right? From birth, we were all given labels. I don't know what your label is, but my label was David. Right? And then we have all this personality and character that goes around it. We've been told that, I am Chinese or I am French. And now when you see sports teams on TV, you cheer for your team, right? Or you have a flag and a national anthem and all these things that your mind has adopted all this stuff. And now when the Buddha's like, yeah, you can shed all of that. You don't need all of that. Well, it can be sometimes challenging for people to see. So if that's the case, no worries. If you guys decide to go forward on the path to enlightenment, you'll learn a lot more about this and how to eliminate it. This is just an introduction for you. So do you guys have any questions on any of these? Impermanence, discontentedness, or non-self? Okay, I don't see any questions online either. All right, so now one more building block, and then I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths. This is craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. This is how the mind longs and yearns. This is the mind chasing after the objects of its affection. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it, right? If you've ever been in the mall where you were like, oh, new pair of shoes. I just got to have those new pair of shoes. Oh, I want those on my feet so bad. And you're longing, yearning for these new pair of shoes, and you run into the shoe store and you're like, oh, do you have size whatever, right? And if they have your size, you're really happy. But if they're like, no, sorry, we don't have your size, you're frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. This is the craving, the desire. The mind's pulling towards the objects of its affection. The mind's like, oh, I know what I need to be happy. I need a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those, right? Or, oh, I know what I need, more money. That'll fix everything. Let me get more money. Oh, I know what I need, a nicer house. Let me get that, right? Or more jewelry or a video game. The mind just longs and yearns and chases. It thinks that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases and chases. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You experience this, right? The mind pulling. Okay, so now you got everything you need to understand the Four Noble Truths. Again, this is where you can have a breakthrough to finally understanding what the problem is in your mind and what's causing that, the solution, and how to completely transform your mind in 4 simple statements that you can independently verify. The first noble truth is explaining the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem you're experiencing. The mind is not stable. It's not steady. It goes up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before you become angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. Lonely, bored, shy, resentful, fear, guilt, shame, something like this. This is the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. Then the second noble truth is explaining the cause of that problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say that a few times, and I'll give you some examples to help you. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the neither painful nor pleasant, those conditioned feelings, they're caused by the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. Because the mind wants things to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. Okay? So let me give you some examples. Think back to like a boyfriend or girlfriend that you might have had, maybe a brand new relationship. When you first got in contact with this person, they started showing you affection. You might have been so happy, so excited. Wow, I've got this new person in my life. They're showing me attention. They're interested in my life, right? Maybe you guys are going out to the movies or to dinner or to the park or having conversations. Maybe you're having sex and things like this. Maybe they're calling and checking in on you, right? And you're like, wow, this is so exciting. Wow, I got all this new person in my life. Well, then over time, things started to fall apart and then you guys broke up. And then when you broke up, you were sad. or you were angry or frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. This was the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently. It wasn't the love or the care that you had, because love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings. What was causing the pain is the mind was holding on, expecting permanence and craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently, when in reality, the relationship was impermanent. Ever since the beginning of the relationship, it was impermanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. And now the relationship is impermanent, right? We can see that the mind is doing this even like if you've had grandparents or parents or siblings that have died and you felt sorrow or grief or sad during that period of time. It wasn't your love. It was the mind craving permanence, that because grandma was born, she had to die, right? But the mind doesn't understand that in the unenlightened state. It's craving permanence. It's wanting this being to be permanent in your life. And now with the mind holding on and craving, and you experience this impermanence with grandma or grandpa dying, the mind doesn't understand that, and it doesn't like it because it's craving mom and dad to be permanent. So if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings. So if grandma and grandpa's alive, wow, I feel so happy. This is great. Yay. But then as soon as they die, your mind's not getting what it wants, which is grandma and grandpa to be alive. You can see this when we were little kids. When I went to our parents, we said, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? They're like, sure, here you go, little David. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Oh, thank you so much. You're the best Mommy and Daddy ever, right? And then the next day, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? Sure, here you go, David. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Ah, you're the best Mommy and Daddy ever, right? But then the third day, it's like, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? Nope, you can't. You're angry because mind's not getting what it wants. It's not mom and dad that's causing it. It's your mind craving that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent, right? Say you got a brand new car and you were so proud of this brand new car. You saved up all this money to buy it. It's shiny. You just drove it off the brand new car lot and now you park it at a store and you go inside and there's a scratch on your car when you come out. Oh my goodness, you might be so frustrated, right? You've just been saving for 10 years to get this car. It's not the scratch that's causing the frustration. And it's not the person who scratched the car. What's causing the frustration and anger is the mind's craving permanence. It wants this car to be permanently beautiful when it's not possible for this car to be permanently beautiful because you live in an impermanent world, right? The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. It's normal. It's part of life. Of course, we try to make decisions where these things don't occur, but it will occur. It's only a matter of time. So if your mind craves permanence while you're living in an impermanent world, you're going to be angry and frustrated and sad at different times. You're going to experience these discontent feelings. So the Buddha is teaching you how your mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way. And you can't experience that in this world because everything's constantly changing. Now remember, you're not believing these teachings. You need to independently verify them. So take a situation where you've recently been angry or frustrated or sad. It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation. Now, at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else because that's what the mind typically does. But look at this situation with fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. What was it that you were longing, yearning for, that if you would have got it, you would have been happy? But because you didn't get what you wanted, you experienced some kind of painful feeling, right? You should be able to see this for yourself. And if you can't, let me know because I'll help you. Plenty of students have asked over the years, right? I had one student one time contact me. They said, David, I went to work this morning and my house looked beautiful. I came home from work after a really hard day. I was at work 8-10 hours and my house was a wreck. My wife had this craft project all over the house. And when I walked in, I got frustrated. how did my mind cause my own discontentedness? Because that's what I'm explaining to you, that it's your own mind that causes discontentedness. They said, how did my mind cause this? My wife's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be discontent? Nope. It's your mind craving permanence. You were expecting the house to look exactly the same when you came home as when you went to work. And it's not possible. Because of impermanence, things just changed. That's all it was. It was just change. When your bank account balance goes from here to here, all you're experiencing is change, right? When it moves from sun to rain, and you get angry or frustrated, you can see that it's not other people that's causing it because there's no other person involved, right? It's just change, and the mind doesn't understand that change. Same thing with your bank account. When your bank account changes, you can see that it's not other people that are causing you to be angry and frustrated. It's your own mind, because the mind firmly believes, with its lack of wisdom, that other people are causing you to be angry. And that's why it becomes unskillful. You'll tend to push people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting expectations on people, right? You might have pushed your friends or family out of your life, or you might push a situation out of your life. This is called aversion. Or you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them. This is through your intention, speech, and actions, almost like an animal growling and roaring. It's like, do things my way. You're trying to fear this person to do things your way. Or you might be putting pressure to control and force people to do things your way. This is the mind being unskillful, because it doesn't understand the second noble truth. It doesn't understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It perceives the problem as being external, and now it's trying to fix the external world. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because then you can actually fix it. But if you don't understand what's causing your feelings, you'll never be able to eliminate them. You'll go through the world completely angry, frustrated, stressed, guilt, shame, fear, all these different feelings the rest of your life. But when you understand what's causing it, then you can actually fix it. And that's where the third noble truth comes in. The Buddha explains that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. This is the longing, the yearning. Sometimes when people hear me talk about this, they're like, whoa, are enlightened beings just like bored and like sitting around and doing nothing? No, that's not true. Because what the unenlightened mind can see very clearly is this chasing that I'm talking about, the craving, the chasing. You can see that very clearly because your mind's done that before. But when you're not doing that, you will tend to swing all the way to the other side, where you're feeling dull and lethargic and lazy and unmotivated, unenthusiastic, with no ambition, right? But what the Buddha is teaching you to do is come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest, with enthusiasm, with ambition, with motivation, right? So the enlightened being, their mind isn't just completely flat and dull and, kind of like mundane. It's actually just the opposite. The mind is bright and cheerful, glad, it's uplifted, right? Because you've gotten rid of the pollutions that are hindering it and bogging it down. But the unenlightened mind has difficulty seeing this because they're used to this swinging back and forth, where you're either chasing things or you're dull and lethargic. But there's a middle way where you can pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making. And the way to be able to get to that elimination of discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. Because if you eliminate the cause of your discontent feelings, you'll eliminate the effect, right? Because if you understand up here with the second noble truth, that discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment. Well, if you eliminate the cause, you will eliminate the effect. You won't experience that effect. So it's the Eightfold Path that's going to teach you how to eliminate that longing, yearning, that chasing after the objects of your affection. Learning how to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. And the Eightfold Path has these 8 individual factors. And it starts with right view. What right view is to be able to understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Wrong view would be to blame other people. Go around the world blaming other people for the feelings you're experiencing. And if that's where you've been up to this point, no worries. That's where everybody is in the unenlightened state, up to the point where they understand right view and they establish right view. right? Because if you go around blaming other people, you don't have right view. You have wrong view at that point. So you need to be able to establish right view, where you can see very clearly that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because now you can actually fix it. So what I suggest you do now and forever is that whenever your mind is angry or frustrated or sad or any other discontent feeling, instead of looking external to blame other people, look inward. Figure out, what am I longing and yearning for here? I'm craving permanence. What is it? What am I craving? So if you show up to an airport and you're really excited to go to Thailand, and you show up and your flight's delayed by 2 hours and you're frustrated, just look inward. It's not the airline company, right? It's not the pilot. It's not the crew. It's not them that's causing you to be frustrated. It's your mind craving permanence. I want every flight to take off on time, especially the ones I'm on, right? Because that's what the mind's doing, right? It's craving permanence. But you live in an impermanent world. If you fly enough, you're going to meet with delays. There's going to be a crew issue, a maintenance issue, a weather issue. It's going to happen because every plane can't take off on time. So instead of sitting there yelling and screaming at the airline company, trying to force them to do things your way, just understand if you have frustration arising, it's from your own craving. And now you can eliminate that and be like, this is impermanence. There's just some impermanence here. And now let me just go sit in the waiting area. Let me read a book. Let me look at the computer. Let me go do some shopping in the airport. Let me go get some food. And by the time I'm done, the plane will be ready to take off and we'll head off, right? No big deal. This is impermanence. You're going to face it from time to time. But when you have craving, you want it now, right? That's the mind craving. Okay, so establishing right view is the very first step of the Eightfold Path. This is the foundation that everything else gets built upon. Because if you didn't understand right view, what's causing your feelings, how could you ever eliminate them? That's what the Buddha is teaching you how to do, is eliminate this anger and frustration and all these other discontent feelings that are just getting in the way of you having wonderful relationships and having a wonderful life where you can be fulfilled and satisfied in all the situations that you're involved in. So do you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths or establishing right view? Looks like I have a question here. Yeah, just take your time. You're welcome to take that back to your seat too. Make yourself comfortable.
Yes. My question is, why does the mind wants permanent?
Because of its ignorance. It's unknowing of true reality. It doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, that everything around you is impermanent. So because of its lack of wisdom of the universal truths, it craves permanence. It wants things to be a certain way permanently because it has that lack of wisdom. So even though we say craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues. Because once you start realizing that things that you're craving are not permanent, then you start to have less and less craving. But you need to train your mind to be able to do this. It's not just an intellectual thing, right? Because you might understand intellectually what we're talking about, but then when you go out there, now it's a whole nother thing. Like you mentioned, you have a partner, right? Maybe you want that partner to do things a certain way, and now when they don't do it your way, you get angry and frustrated with them. So the mind is craving this permanence because it doesn't understand impermanence. It has that lack of wisdom. Any other questions? Let's see if we have anything online here. I don't see any questions. Okay, so the Buddha's teachings on the Eightfold Path will completely transform the mind in order to eliminate this longing, yearning, this craving. And I'm going to be teaching this on Tuesday morning because we have a course coming up on Monday through Friday. It's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if you were here Monday morning, you could start the course. There is a place online to register, but you don't have to. You can just come here if you like. where I'm going to be teaching all the foundational teachings that lead to enlightenment. And on Tuesday morning, I'm going to teach this entire path. It takes about 2.5 hours for me to teach it. And then you slowly but surely implement it in your life gradually through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. That's what's going to transform your mind. It's not instantaneous. This journey to enlightenment, it's not 1 week, it's not 1 month, it's not 1 year. It's a gradual training of the mind, but it's a permanent solution. When you train your mind this way, it's physically impossible for you to ever experience anger or frustration ever again. So it's a permanent solution. It's kind of like if you were going to hike up a mountain and you get up there and you see a beautiful view and you get all this fresh air. Well, when you hike a mountain, you have to walk back down, right? And you can't really enjoy it permanently. But this isn't that way. When you walk up the mountain, you get to enjoy the view and the fresh air permanently. Your mind will always be in that mental state. So if you'd like to learn this, there's an opportunity for you coming up. And then also, I've recorded it many times on our YouTube channel, on our podcast. It's in our books and our audiobooks and all these things. So there's plenty of ways for you to learn it if you're not going to be here this week. So feel free to let me know. I can get you connected with all of those things. And even the course this week, I live stream it. So Monday through Friday, I'll be live streaming that as well. So the way I kind of end this course is just to kind of circle back where we started from, which is, what are the teachings of the Buddha? It's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to understand what is hurting you is within your own mind. It's not the outside world. And when you come to that understanding, it's very empowering, because then instead of going around trying to fix everybody else, you just work on your own mind. And now you become more and more peaceful and more joyful. The Buddha didn't go around telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. He just worked on his own mind. And then when he worked on his own mind, he figured it out, and then he taught it to other people so that they could enjoy that same mental state. So if you're done with the broken relationships, if you're tired of the heartache and the misery, if you're tired of the guilt and the shame and the loneliness and boredom, that's where the path to enlightenment is for. It's for you to do this inner work of growing and developing this, I would say, self-discovery, but there is no self, right? It's this inner work, this inner discovery to really be able to cultivate wisdom, purify your mind, and experience the peace and joy of the enlightened mental state. Because life doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be so challenging for you. Life can be at ease. So it's these teachings that are going to help you to be able to gradually do that. So if you need help getting plugged into any of the resources or learning opportunities, just let me know. You can ask questions in live classes like this. You can post on our Facebook group where I'll be the one who answers your questions. You can send me private messages, and all my information is on our website, or you can schedule personal guidance and we can sit down and talk and I can help you, or you can just come talk to me after class too. It's really up to you. So if you'd like help to heal from what hurt you, there's help for you, and it's all available at no cost. Everything's available. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. And as you would like to learn more, perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Okay? Be well and take care. Sawadee-kap. Sawadee-kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.